So I'm Colt Hamilton here with Hamilton Native Outpost, and today we're going to do a video on silphiums related to grazing. What is a silphium? Well, a silphium is a plant family that contains 4 silphiums that I'm aware of. This one here that I'm looking at, this is compass plant, and the others are rosinweed, cut plant, and prairie dock that we'll be doing videos on today. They're a very important part of diverse native grassland or a prairie ecosystem. There's a lot of wildlife, that, especially insects, that feed exclusively on silphiums. So they're a big part of their life cycle. But as far as larger mammals such as cattle, which is the main cattle, sheep, goats, as far as what they eat on the silphiums, believe it or not, this stalk is very rough. It's very, it looks very unpalatable, and it's very rigid. The leaves are coarse and sandpaper-like, and cattle actually will, basically when they get done eating this compass plant, it would look a lot like that. And you'll still have the stem and a few leaves attached on, but they'll basically strip the leaves. They generally don't eat the basal leaves at the ground, but they'll eat the seed stalk. Later, as it matures more, they'll actually eat the individual seed balls off of the stalk as it comes more dry, such as this one. They'll eat the individual seed balls off to get the grain. But once you break that stalk, and you look inside, so in that seed stalk you can see you've got a very coarse outer layer, and then underneath that you have the more pethy center layer that livestock, I think, is actually after, and you can see the juice and see how that's breaking apart into more of a pethy, and they'll just eat them one after another like candy. They really enjoy them. It's kind of seems to be seasonal when they will eat them. They'll let them grow to a certain point, and then all of a sudden they'll just start eating them, and then from there on till seed set, they'll continue to eat those seed stalks and the leaves on compass plant. Now each plant's a little different when they like to eat them, and at what times of the year and what stage of growth. Today here it's hot today. We're in the latter part of August. Compass plant, as you can see, some of them are done blooming for the year. Some got a few little blooms left on them as they're finishing up their life cycle. And when we get over to the cut plant, it's just starting its full bloom. Rosinweed's blooming really pretty. So we'll go look at some other plantings. So on compass plant here, one of the most identifying characteristics of the silphiums is the leaves. On compass plant, if you notice, these leaves they're kind of a serrated leaf, and they are lined up north and south. So this way would be east, this way would be west, and the leaves point north and south so they can collect the most sunlight as the sun travels overhead from rise to set. So that's how you could tell compass plant, and that's where the plant got its name from. So with the compass plant, another characteristic is its height. I measure about 6.5 feet tall. This is about an average size compass plant here, but I have, the tallest I've ever measured myself was over 14 feet. So they can really get tall. This is kind of average to small. So I'm in a field of rosinweed here, and rosinweed's another member of the silphium family, and as far as its palatability to cattle, they like it quite well at the earlier stages of growth. And if we want to take a look here at one, you can see how this one here has been bit off here on top, probably by a deer. They browse on them some. As far as cattle, what they'll do is browse them off to about down here where I broke this one off, and they'll just kind of mow them that way, leave these bottom leaves. The leaves on these are really sandpapery, just like what we was talking about on the compass plant. The blooms are a really nice, bright and open bloom. At their peak bloom, they're a very pretty flower. They kind of, on the bottom, they've got the petals where they emerge from. They come out in kind of a neat pattern. A lot of things I like about the silphiums. As far as identifying characteristics on rosinweed, if you look at a stem from the top, or kind of top view, you have alternating leaf pattern where it switches each story. The leaf switches back and forth. They're a rough sandpapery type leaf. A lot of veination in the bottom of that leaf that you can see. and a red stem. They're kind of a coarser stemmed and not as thick and big of a meaty stem as some of the other Silphiums. Keeping livestock doesn't graze them quite as low as they do the others. They have a very meaty seed, and that's why birds really like all the Silphium seeds. In fact, I've been known to, on days I have time, to clean a few out in my hand and eat them. Another one of the Silphiums we want to look at is Prairie Dock. It's also palatable by livestock, has the same looking bloom to it. It's got a long, slender seed stalk, stands up here. This is about a normal height Prairie Dock. They'll get 7, 8 foot tall sometimes. What's easily recognizable about it, and this is a poor sample of one, but you see the large, so the leaves can get, they can be 3 foot long, 2 foot's pretty common, and 1 foot to 1.5 feet wide of a leaf. Huge elephant ear, triangle shaped, like arrowhead shaped leaves. Very few leaves come up the stalk, and what's usually there looks immature and doesn't really get any bigger than that. Cattle will actually eat the large leaves on these. They're very rough, they're very gritty, but they will eat and consume that fleshy leaf. And they will eat the seed stalk as well. The big thing to recognize Prairie Dock by is obviously the big leaves at the bottom and the fairly naked seed stalk. That's the big identifying characteristic. Same yellow bloom pattern and same seed shape. So the last Silphium I'm going to show you here today is cut plant. And the cut plant is probably the most palatable of all the Silphiums as far as cattle or livestock. Not only will they consume the heads, the leaves, and most of the stalk. This stalk on it is actually square in stem. I'll bring it up here to show you. It is square stemmed and flanged a little bit on the end. But what's very neat, it's the softest stalk and very pethy center. They actually in Russia have done quite a few studies chopping this for silage for winter feed and of course fermenting it for silage. What makes cut plant very recognizable is the leaves come around and they hook together. This leaf on this side and this leaf on that side are one continuous leaf, creating the cup there that makes the name so famous. That cup. And those cups do multiple things. So the first is they catch the morning dew and they puddle water down in there. And a lot of the birds that live on the prairie, actually that's where they get a drink in the morning, is from these little pockets of water. And these cups actually hold, there's quite a bit of volume to them down inside of there. So that's one thing. Insects and birds drink out of the cups when it's dry, and they fill that cup with just a small amount of dew shedding off them leaves down to that center cup. And it'll be 11 o'clock in the summertime before the water will evaporate out of those cups entirely. So it's always fun when you got to check your field of cut plant and you get wet. The last thing I want to show you is the seeds out of the Silphiums. And of course this is not a mature and done seed head ready to filled out and ready to harvest, but if you pick one of these off and you break it apart, you'll have different layers of plant material here. Along the outer ring you have the seeds itself, which, not to be confused with the leaves that hold the seeds in, they look very similar. That's the leaf that holds the seed in. So this is the leaf on the outside of the seed head that holds these seeds in place inside. So then you have a ring of seeds just inside of those leaves. That's what your seed looks like. Now it's not real plump and meaty yet. It's still immature and hasn't filled out, but those will fill out into a nice sunflower sized bite. Something you would actually could eat yourself. These are all the seeds that was inside of one head. This is just the pollinating plant material, the center of the flower. And that's what the livestock and a little bit later here in the fall, probably within a month when they're eating the heads, they're after that actual grain inside those heads, and they like that quite well. The foliage at that point is less desirable to them, but they'll still eat that grain stalk. So the Silphium family is a very interesting family of plants, and I think they're very important not only to the prairie ecosystem, but also to the grazing world as far as diverse native grassland, or that kind of a grazing, natural grazing system, more natural grazing system, not only because of their palatability, but also the root systems and their soil health traits that they carry. The root systems on all these Silphiums are slightly different one to another, from a tap root to a very fibrous underground network type root. So just a lot going on in the Silphium family alone. So that is this family of Silphiums. We think it's a very neat family of plants and really adds a lot to a diverse native grazing system, as well as it does to the prairie ecosystems it originated in. The Silphium plants have a lot of different traits, even amongst the same family, from some are very deep tap-rooted plants to some are very fibrous, wide-spreading root systems. So there's a lot going on under the ground, above the ground, for not only your livestock, but for wildlife and pollinators as well. This is Colt Hamilton with Hamilton Native Outpost. We got a passion for native plants and their uses, and really enjoy being able to bring these videos to you. Check us out on our other YouTube videos and our website at hamiltonnativeoutpost.com.